This morning in our story from Luke's Gospel, we have one of the most well-known verbs to preachers, pastors, seminarians, and theologians in all of the Greek language. It is the verb luo, lambda, upsilon, omega, luo. And it is one of the most well-known, not because this is the most popular Bible story, it isn't, or because this verb is the most used, not a chance. Agape, love, anyone heard of that one? Will appear many more times. But rather it is so well known because it is one of the key words that preachers, pastors, seminarians, and theologians use to learn biblical Greek, to learn how Greek verbs conjugate or change forms in their different uses. Greek teachers like the word luo because it behaves. It obeys the rules of grammar and therefore can serve as a foundation for learning. And besides, luo, it's kind of a fun word to say, right? Luo. Of course, the irony here, and I think you'll really get a kick out of this, is that God gave the entire Greek-speaking world, and indeed to those of us who are trying to learn it now, a word that in all of its technical precision behaves, but whose actual meaning is the complete opposite. You see, the word luo means to untie, to loose, to unleash, to unbound, to break free. It is quite literally a conventional word whose meaning is to break convention. Whether serendipity or divine humor, this pastor is digging it. So in our story today, Jesus is teaching in a synagogue. He would have been invited as a rabbi, as a guest to teach in this synagogue. And we have a woman, yes, an unnamed woman, who Jesus will call a daughter of Abraham, who is bent over. And when I say bent over, think literally like we never quite bow this much in church, but like solemn bow, bent over. And it says that she's been that way for 18 years. Right? However you keep time, that's a long, long time. And Jesus is teaching here, not in the biggest temple, not in Jerusalem, right? He's teaching in a synagogue in a community on his way to Jerusalem. In a community that might, in fact, not have had too many more people living in it than worship on a Sunday here at St. Mark's. These communities might have had 8 to 30 families, and family sizes varied, but everybody knew everybody else. We're not talking about a ton of folks. And so to say that this woman bent over could not see would not just describe her position, right, which makes sense. If you're bent over, you can only see maybe the few steps in front of you to find your way. But this also came to be the posture of that entire town with regards to her condition and the importance of including her in spaces like the Sabbath. And so, the synagogue leaders, you might say, also are in some sense bent over, unable to see how different her condition is, how challenging her condition is. And on an intuitive level, we get this, right? So let's say you're driving down the 101, and it's a part of your regular commute, and there are those signs that are on each side of the road, billboards advertising many different things. And perhaps when a new one goes up, you notice it at first, but then after a few days or weeks of driving, it kind of fades in the background, right? You're trying to get where you're going. Perhaps any of this happened to you before, right? Driving down, you just start to miss things. They fade in the background. Now, in advertising, they have a concept that they teach to help a brand to stand out from the monotony of this type of daily drive. I don't know if I have introduced it to you before here, but it's called the purple cow. All right, the idea of the purple cow. And the idea is that if you were driving along the 101 and there were a purple cow on the side of the road, you'd be like, hey, wait a second. There shouldn't be a cow on the side of 101, and it definitely shouldn't be purple. But, cleverly, whoever put that cow there has gotten your attention. So, what does that in the story today? On the one hand, we would think, well, what gets my attention is I don't meet too many women who are bent over, especially not for 18 years. Yeah, it's tempting for that to grab our attention and us to hold on to that. But I think if we read the story with those who first heard the story or encountered the story, certainly lived the story, the purple cow is that Jesus interrupts the Shabbat service. He interrupts right in the middle of his teaching to see this woman who, she might be a member of St. Mark. She's clearly come in a couple of minutes after the service has started, right? He stops what he's doing. He stops what he's supposed to be doing. And then he heals her. And in healing her, he not only helps her to stand up, having been bent over to see, but he also tries to heal the bent overness, the blindness of the community to the impact of her plight. Now, the synagogue leaders take some issue with this act of healing occurring on the Sabbath. Right? There is something so sacred about that command, right? To experience as God did rest, as God tells us that the creation has been finished, to enjoy it, to share in that joy. And here, that rest for this woman can finally be more fully realized, being freed from her pain, from her condition. And Jesus liberates her only, notice, to do that which everybody else was already able to do, to enter and gather as the community on the Sabbath day, to complete their week by resting in the glory and the praise of their Creator. So if you're following so far, you now understand that Jesus has luoed her, right? Just like that word, right? He does so by being luoed, freed himself from what he was supposed to be doing. And in doing so, changes the focus of what is important for the community to be able to gather for the Sabbath. And more than anything he'll say with his words, which we don't get that recorded in this story, perhaps that is the most important teaching of the day. Now, beloved, I must confess something I've noticed over the course of the summer, which has seemed to go by in the blink of an eye, is that like those in the synagogue community, I've myself become somewhat metaphorically bent over, looking down. Months have gone by and the same signs and the same features. I think I engaged the least with our Hotel de Zinc guests this year, and they were here twice as long. The tragic news that comes in the news cycle starts to sound like Charlie Brown's teacher after a while. Whenever you do finally tune in, of course, it just breaks your heart. And so for me, all of that's kind of faded into the background somewhat. I've been so nose to the grindstone trying to finish the interim here on a strong foot that I feel as though I might as well be as ignorant to the needs or blinded to the needs of the community right where I live. And I share that not because I'm unique in the season of transition or because I'm a priest or any other reason, but I think most of us are likely caught up in the breakneck pace of the living of these days. And if summer went by quickly, how fast life will come at us when we're once again overscheduled and running on all cylinders. And that's true here at St. Mark's as well. It can be the case that my prayers become too focused on the next spot where my foot will find to land, instead of looking up and around or being open to how Jesus might want to interrupt the monotony of my day to help serve those who are in need. Now, there are some of you who aren't this way, and you give me courage. You inspire me in my prayers to ask Jesus to help me stand up, to help me see both for myself, but also as a leader in a congregation like that synagogue leader, to help me see how it is that we can serve together. Now, I wonder if your story of faith has within it some kind of purple cow moment or moments. These bursting in of the grace and mercy of God, the unexpected way in which God's kindness and favor falls upon you or upon another. When we stop what we're doing, when we stop what we're supposed to be doing to participate in what God's doing, in God's healing, in God's mercy, and God's justice. Now, my prayer is that our community fair today will be kind of a purple cow moment for you. That might have already happened in church for you. Jazz can do that, can it? A kind of encounter with this word luo, that you would be loosed, unleashed, unbounded, breaking free, to look up and around here at St. Mark's, up and around across your lives. That you'd remember that our ministry here is your ministry, and that it truly matters and is better when we do it and serve together. Beloved, today you'll have an opportunity to make a commitment in service here at St. Mark's to a ministry event or effort. And I'm asking every single one of you to make a commitment at the community fair today. There will also be a special opportunity to take an early step in welcoming Reverend Kirsten, who, as I speak with her, herself is luoed, breaking free, excited to come and join you in October. And it isn't that we won't go back to our busy schedules or need to run on all cylinders once again, but that perhaps in the midst of your living, in the midst of your serving, in the midst of your discipleship, of your witness, of your presence, that you, in a way, by following Jesus, will somehow be yourself a purple cow that helps to refocus your heart and those around you on the healing and the mercy and the justice that comes from Jesus and is for us all. Amen.